Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tulane Entertainment and Sports Conference. My name is Gabe Feldman. I am the director of the Tulane Sports Law Program and the co-director of the Tulane Center for Sport, which happen to be the two co-sponsors of tonight's event. As you may have noticed, I am not Tim Francis. Tim Francis was going to be the moderator, but he got tied up with some international travel. So I'm stepping in as a moderator, and our two panelists tonight are Greg Bensel, the Senior Vice President of Communications and Broadcasting for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans, and Christina Francis, the President of Magic Johnson Enterprises. And we are here tonight to talk a little bit about the kind of present and future of the sports industry, the entertainment industry, and related industries. And what I want to do is start with a couple of questions, but that I'd really like to have as much audience participation as possible. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will kind of filter through them and send them on to Greg and Christina. I want to start with Christina, and to give a little more flavor for your background. As I mentioned, you're the president of Magic Johnson Enterprises. You previously worked at, and I'm going to miss one or two of these, but let me see if I get the whole list right here. Nissan, Walt Disney, Burger King, San Diego Padres, NFL Players Association, the Orange Bowl Committee. Is that?
That's close.
Close. Okay. You are an alum of Xavier University, and not only an alum, but it took you only 3 years to graduate, and you graduated as a valedictorian. So I'm wondering what you were doing with all of your free time. And then you have an MBA from UNO. So you're a New Orleanian, and you're wearing your New Orleans shirt if people can see it. So thank you for returning to New Orleans virtually. This was a conference that was intended to be in person. Hopefully next year we'll be back in person. Christina, you can come back home and visit us here.
I would love to do that.
Thank you again for joining us. I want to start just by asking you, we have a lot of law students, a lot of lawyers in the room. You're not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer.
You thought you would become a lawyer at one point. And apparently because of your persuasion techniques, that you've been able to use some of the skills you might have used as a lawyer in your business. Tell me why you early on made the decision not to become a lawyer, and if at any part of you wishes you had the law degree, and if so, why? And if not, why not?
You know what? I was young, so I was going down the path. My father's a lawyer. I studied political science. I was on that path to take that LSAT, and then in my senior year, decided, what am I going to do with it? And honestly, I don't want to say that to law students out there, because at the time I was having a good time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Some people are born knowing they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief. I was I was probably one of those jack of all trades, but a master of none. And so I decided that I wanted to take the GMAT, and I went to business school and I got an MBA. And during that time, I was told I should have gotten a JD MBA. And I would tell anyone in law school that that is my biggest regret, is that I should have just done it at the time and gotten a JD MBA. And because I use a lot of those law skills in reading skills and analytics in my day-to-day job. So if I could do it again, I would do a JD MBA.
Great. And students who are listening, we do offer a JD MBA at Tulane. You've got that option. Greg, you are nearing, or maybe you're at, a quarter century with the Saints, and the team's official spokesman, overseeing all internal and external communications, the primary liaison between the club and national and local media. You do the same role for the Pelicans. So my first question is to you is, as the senior vice president of communications and broadcasting for the Pelicans, what is the current score of the Pelicans game tonight?
Well, I'm supposed to be there and I'm not there because Tim Francis asked me to be here. When Tim says jump, I ask how high. I don't know the answer, but I'm sure I'll find it on my trusty little app here in a minute, Gabe.
Okay. So tell me, because there are a lot of lawyers and law students and prospective law students who want to get into the sports industry, not necessarily as a lawyer. And some of them will use their JD as a means to just break into the industry and to maybe raise their ceiling a little bit. Can you just talk about your path to a job that I think many people would love to have, being both of your jobs that many people would love to have, but being the senior VP of communications and broadcasting for two professional sports teams. I would imagine you're one of maybe one who have that job for two professional sports franchises, just like Vicky Newmeyer, maybe one of one who's a general counsel for two professional sports teams.
Probably so. Yeah. Quickly, my background is, I went to Tulane and kind of like was fooling around a lot. I'm from New Orleans, went to Jesuit, and really didn't have a thought of what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in sports, and I ended up going to do an internship with the Saints, and ended up going to get a graduate degree in sports administration down in Miami. And while I was there, I was thinking, maybe I'll go get a law degree. And I actually put in the time to study and apply, register, I should say, for the LSAT. I went in to take the LSAT on a Saturday morning, looked to my left and looked to my right, had my number 2 pencils, and I started. And let's just say it was 30 minutes into it, and I was like, man, these lawyers are smart. And I got to figure out something else. I got to go be a PR guy. And so ended up, I was fortunate enough right after graduate school, I went to work for the PGA Tour and then made my way around the country on the tour, and then came back home for the Super Bowl host committee. And like you said, I've been with the Saints for going on 25 years. But what's interesting about my job is that while I may have started as, say, the director of PR, communications, media relations for the Saints 25 years ago, my job has evolved clearly with us buying the Pelicans. And then when Mr. Benson passed away, we created sort of a quasi-family office, of which Vicky and a number of us on the executive level operate. We operate a lot of Mrs. Benson's enterprises, from her real estate and automotive, and we just launched Benson Capital Partners, which is a $60 million investment firm, and so we're involved in a lot of different things. I'm on the board of their philanthropic of the Tommy Gale Benson Foundation. So I've found myself to be less of a PR guy, less of what you described as the head communications guy, the head spokesman. Although if there's anything negative to have to report in the media, I'm typically the guy they throw out there. But
we'll come back to that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of the brief history. But anyway, thank you guys for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for representing Tulane well out there in the industry. And Christina, speaking of being a Jack or Jill of all trades, you do a lot of different things for Magic Johnson Enterprises. You've done a lot of things before Magic Johnson Enterprises, but the evolution of the industry, as Greg said, being a PR or communications person, and his job has changed a lot over 25 years. It's hard to think of many people who have sort of had a more public and interesting evolution from being one of the best basketball players of all time and one of the biggest celebrities in the country in Earvin Magic Johnson, to now his sort of next stage in the evolution of his career as Magic Johnson Enterprises. So can you talk a little bit, just for folks who may not know what Magic Johnson Enterprises does and about their mission of fostering community and economic empowerment, and kind of what role you play in that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's a lot like Greg. I started my career more on the marketing communication side, and moved around, took on different roles, different types of roles within that capacity, and landed with Magic Johnson Enterprises. And I actually was handling the branding and marketing and communication side. And like him, the enterprise is like the parent company. And under the parent company is really all of Mr. Johnson's holdings and ownership, right? So you have the Dodgers, you have the Sparks, LAFC, which is our soccer club. We have Team Liquid, which is a digital team. So we have all of our sports. We have private investments. We have venture. We have an infrastructure fund. We own Equitrust, which is a financial services business. Sodexo Magic, which is a food services and facilities management business. So under all of those holdings is what the parent company is Magic Johnson Enterprises. And so I now work across all of that and have my hand in every element, but I always come back to the brand is the most important thing that we protect. We protect his brand, that name, the likeness, because as all of those businesses grow, he has a major stakehold in it. And he's an interesting hybrid because he's a businessman, that's invested in these businesses and is helping run these businesses, but he's also a celebrity. And so in a lot of those businesses, we're also promoting that talent and that personality. And people love that about him because he can get into a business and not only, knows how it runs, but he also can promote it and can put it in a position that people, understand what it is or see it in a different light. And so I am I'm the 5'2" of the 6'9". And so I represent him in what he does and vet the business deals and development for him.
And is there because there's so many different entities that you just mentioned, and same thing with Gail Benson and the different entities. Is there a theme that ties it all together, or is this a little bit of he has an opportunity to do a lot of different things, so he's doing a lot of different things, and he has different interests, and there may be again the community aspect of it, but is there a sort of an ultimate goal that he will say I've been successful because I've accomplished X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, we always look at things. He says, I won't do anything if it's not doing good and doing well. So if he can make a lot of money, but it's not going to do good or make an impact, he won't touch it. But he also may not do something that just does well or that's doing good, but it's not going to be successful financially, right? So everything that we do, we look at it from that angle of this is something that not only can we be successful from a business perspective, but we can take this and give back to the community, or we can engage the underserved and give them experiences. And that's where the mission of bringing high quality products, services, and entertainment to the underserved. And so that's where that comes from. So that's one part. The other part is that he is a competitor. And so it is all about the art of business and succeeding and winning. And if it's an opportunity that he really believes in, he wants to go for it.
Great, thank you. So Greg, back to you, and speaking of the sort of negative stories that you mentioned, and you having to be the face for the negative stories, in your time there, what has been related to either the Saints or the Pelicans, the most challenging issue to deal with about one of the teams? Because the two that come to mind that relocation related, post Katrina, a more permanent relocation, and then COVID. And this, we just set a record because we've now done, I think, 90 minutes of panels tonight so far, and that was the first COVID reference, which is really pretty remarkable. But there was the talk about moving to play in LSU's stadium because of the issues with the dome and attendance there. So those, but I'm sure there are many, many, many others.
Yeah, there are. I mean, look, we've had to deal with a number of issues, and we found ourselves. I know I found myself on the tip of the spear relative to crisis communications, and learned it firsthand. And how do we adapt to it? But some of the big things that we've had to deal with that I define them as really what's like frustrating to me as someone who's I'm find myself unable to tell our story, to get our narrative out there. And that's what I would define as really a tough get, if you will, in crisis communications and dealing with the media and dealing with having to deal with a negative story. I can, Gabe, you followed Bountygate, and obviously the post Katrina San Antonio, New Orleans scenario. Both of those were akin to each other relative to the true narrative was never really told. In one case, It was us in the bounty gate against really the what the NFL had already predetermined was going to be the punishment, and there was we were guilty of that crime before we were able to even defend ourselves, and it was a constant battle. And really, I thought at that point, unfairly, the team was made, made to pay a dear price relative to setting a tone for the league, the rest of the league, on this how this bounty was not going to be accepted anymore. On the San Antonio front, for someone like me who was in these meetings every day in San Antonio, my house was underwater in New Orleans. We knew what New Orleans was going through, every intention of coming back to New Orleans. And we were in meetings in San Antonio. We're just trying to survive, and there is no stadium to go back to. And the talk is that we're looking for another place to go, when in fact we were looking for another place to play, and not necessarily relocate permanently, right? So those stories have a way of getting twisted and turned around, and they start to they form a direction of their own, and it's hard to kind of repivot them back, right? And so, look, those are just a couple of them. I mean, you mentioned COVID. I look at what we've done as an organization since March of last year through COVID as a true success story in New Orleans, and the ability to kind of maintain our business. Saints, we didn't have fans in the stands, but the Pels, and we do tonight. We have our largest crowd ever tonight, and the largest crowd that's allowed by the city. But what we found during COVID was our ability to adapt as an organization, to still maintain our ability to make money, to give back to the community, to continue to do what we've been doing, even though we didn't have fans, So and what we found out was that we were an organization that was tightly knit. Everybody came into the office every day, and that's how we did our business. But yet we found out that we were damn good at being remote, and we became very efficient I run the production department of about 30 or 40 people in our production department. They need to be hands-on in creating, communicating, and yet they were able to do all of this remote unbelievably. So what we found out was that we have really good people working for us, and it was a true success story in COVID. But to your question though, Gabe, it's every day there's something that's popping up either in the NFL that we have to react to. Our players don't like 17 games, right? So every day we're always trying to find a balance with something that might not suit our fans well. Last week we announced that we're raising ticket prices for the Pelicans. We're keeping ticket prices flat for the Saints. So you name it, it's day by day, it's hour by hour, hand-to-hand combat in the NFL and the NBA world, especially in our market, which is one of the most loyal and passionate fan bases in both NBA and NFL.
Right. So, Christina, you mentioned the big part of your job and your colleagues is protecting the Magic Johnson brand and how valuable that brand is. Given the different areas that he's involved in and that you're involved in, are there examples that you can think of where whether you had to get lawyers involved or not, where the brand was being either co-opted or ambushed or whatever IP that you guys have in his name and his likeness was being taken? Have there been examples where you've had to have I assume there are some, but are there any notable ones that you can share with us?
I mean, not really. We talk about licensing a lot, right? And so using his name, and he has a set of lawyers for everything, right? So I have the lawyers I go to when it's more of a, advertising TV broadcast, that SAG perspective. I have one that's more for, kind of the marketing services and ownership equity pieces, and then we have lawyers for the licensing that help me with the IP and how things should be written. And so we're constantly looking at people that are setting up things under his name or that are utilizing his name. I can think of one where I got a call from the FBI And that always freaks you out when it's the FBI. And so you get on the phone, and they said, they wanted to just verify who I was. And then they said that there was someone out there that was utilizing his name, his photo, and he was selling, he was getting investments on a business and saying that Mr. Johnson was involved in it. And he was basically taking people's money and then moving along, going somewhere else and saying, I got Magic Johnson and I'm doing this. And he was getting investments. And so they had been following him for a while. And so they wanted to understand, did we know him? Who was he? And they had to give me a full background. And I was like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, but hold on, let me check with Irvin, because there's sometimes where people will call him and he'll say, oh yeah, and then it has to somehow circle back to me. And so I had to go to him and also say, do you know this guy? Have you ever met him? And he's like, nope, 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 nope. And the FBI went on to do what they needed to do. So, I mean, that's the main one I can think of. But
Yeah,
we
well,
have lawyers for everything.
that's good news that you don't have other bigger ones that you've had to deal with.
Yes.
Greg, the issue that's kind of floated in the news a little bit around the Saints is the potential naming rights deal for the Superdome. As we know, the deal with the Mercedes-Benz expires in July of this year, I believe it is. And so there's rumors out there that there may be a deal with Caesars for the naming rights to the Superdome and Caesars Entertainment. And it's fascinating to me, and I'm curious to hear your perspective and Christina's perspective on this as well. For as long as sports have been around, the biggest fear of sports leagues was gambling on sports, was fixing games, anything that might hurt the integrity of the game. And that was the cardinal sin for a very long time in every sports league. Really, baseball and the Black Sox scandal being part of that. But every league, I think it was the only offense for a very long time in the CBA, a first offense that would lead to a permanent ban for gambling. Now they've softened those rules a little bit, but with the Supreme Court a few years ago allowing the states to decide whether sports gambling would be legal or not, now lots of states legalizing it, we are seeing teams and leagues slowly start to embrace, or in some cases not so slowly, start to embrace gambling. So can you tell us what, if anything, is going on with the naming rights deal and what that sort of negotiation looks like in a market like New Orleans, which is obviously very different than some of the bigger markets out there? And then two, how the relationship with sports gambling and fantasy sports has evolved since you've been there.
Yeah, it certainly has gone from 0 to 60. 0 being zero relationship to where we are now, where even the NFL is embracing partnerships, right? Tonight we launched, literally tonight we launched on our Pelicans broadcast, the rebranding of our television partner to Bally Sports, and then the NFL has done a partnership with ESPN and ESPN and Caesars, and so it's we as a team were disallowed from those partnerships, but now we are allowed. And I think if you go back in time and you kind of peel back the onion on why sports game or gambling was disallowed as a potential partner or any kind of connection with sports teams, really, Gabe, it started in the injury report. That when injuries would set the line, and how you could how a team could kind of, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, screw with that or fool around with that or adjust it as they see fit to play games with it. And so
manipulate.
There you go. You're the lawyer. And so, but anyway, it was that's what I think. Those are the things. The protocols have been put in place now to protect against that. And yet, these sports gaming companies like Caesars and Bally and all these other ones just have so much bandwidth and so much synergy and connectivity to the entertainment product, data capture, that it makes sense for us, the NFL and the NBA, to embrace them and not run away from them, and find out how can we be good partners. And how can we do that in a legal way? And so our Mercedes deal ends in July. We have been looking for a new partner for the better part of a year and a half, and we've talked to a number of companies. As I sit here today, I can't, like I said in that article the other day, I can't confirm that that Caesars is it, but we are certainly in talks with them. And it's really there's a room full of lawyers that are dealing with it right now. It's a complicated deal. It's a big deal. It's a 20-year deal. It'll need legislative committee approval. It'll need NFL approval, all of which basically we feel are going to be greenlit, and so we'll be fine there. And then for us, it's a partner. If we are talking about Caesars, it's a partner much akin to who we are. Like Christina was saying, about Magic's companies. We're built in bringing commerce to the city of New Orleans, doing good for the city of New Orleans. What can we do to bring commerce, to bring business to the city of New Orleans? Well, Harrah's is a major player down here. They just did a deal with the state to build a $300 million expansion on their casino here, and they're going to rebrand it Caesars. They're going to rebrand it right at the same time that hopefully we announce them as a naming rights partner. So they'll have a major presence and position here. They've also been a great corporate citizen, and they've also been very good at giving back to the community, much like we have. So it's a great partnership. We look forward to finalizing it and getting all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and announcing it. We probably won't do anything there at all until June, because, like I said, the legislators have to give it final approval. But it's been welcome for us because we've been at that door. We've been at that doorstep. There've been companies that have been wanting to come together, the NFL and teams with these gambling operators, and now we've got an opportunity now, and so that's good for us.
Great. And if it is Caesars and if the deal is approved, hypothetically, what might the new name of the dome potentially be?
Caesars Superdome.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've seen on some renderings.
Okay. All right. Because I'm thinking with the double meaning of Caesars, my students groaned when I made this comment, but it could be known as the Salad Bowl.
There you go. You guys are marketing.
Just you guys can take that for free. You don't have to give me credit.
We just don't want the Smoothie King Center to be called Little Caesars.
Right. So Christina, on that note, in terms of, we talked a little bit about the evolution of the industry, and obviously Magic Johnson's evolution from player to entrepreneur. A big part of the evolution of sports entertainment is technology, and part of, at least for sports, is the growth of sports gambling, fantasy sports, and then wearable technology, and just all the data issues that come up in that context. And it's really changed in a lot of ways the way that consumers watch sports, and the way that we as fans have an interest not just in our home team, but also in our fantasy team, or the team we've gambled on, or hypothetically gambled on if it were legal in Louisiana. But from thinking about when Magic was playing to now Magic having an ownership stake in the Dodgers and in the Sparks, how much is he involved? And by extension, how much are you involved in thinking about sort of the growth opportunities in the future of sports teams and sports leagues, and what it looks like, either from that perspective or even beyond the ownership stake in the teams?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would take it from, outside the ownership stake of the teams, we are constantly looking at those opportunities. Something that Greg said just about the league being open to it. When I was at NFL Players, this was almost about 8 years ago. And we were entertaining these ideas of having rookie premiere, in Vegas. And we had a lot of people, a lot of the hotels and resorts that were courting NFL players, but the trying to figure out how to work that in the NFL wasn't really in it 7 or 8 years ago. So this is all very new, and I don't know, Greg, if this is like maybe the past 5 years that it really, and I don't know if it blossomed really because of DraftKings and FanDuel in so many ways now that people are figuring out how to do it, from technology to also people wanting to have that fan engagement with the actual player and have that interaction. So when you talk about technology and you're talking about the wearables and wanting to know what that player's doing on the court and where he's shooting, what his percentages are, and that you can find that out immediately right there on your phone. People are really engaged in that, and that all ties to the betting as well. So I don't have a whole lot of answers on it because it's something that we look at every day from a investment perspective, because we watch the technology, we're watching where things are going, and we're looking at it saying, I mean, this is, people are more hungry for information. What are the leagues doing? Are the leagues opening up to it? Because if they are, then that's going to open up the floodgates to the teams and the players. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective, but I also, would ask Greg that same question because this has all come about, I would say, in the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's gotten more prolific. There's no question. And what you say, Christina, is exactly right. It's for us. It's about what can we do, and that's capture data, and how do we communicate to those people? How do we sell them a shirt, or how do we sell them a ticket? Um, we don't we're literally walking up to the line of allowing them to gamble on games right now, and we're not there. We're probably another 5 years from that, if that at all. And so, but yet we have a team in Vegas now. We have a stadium in Vegas now, and literally almost connected to that stadium is a sports book. And so, just figuratively, it's that close. So I think the league has got to figure out a way. What's the word? You can't beat them, join them, right? And so we the NFL have positioned ourselves so that whether you're talking about players, the PA, or you're talking about the league itself, both I think have the goal to find what's the closest we can come. This is definitely a synergy, like I said, and how can we marry that up without crossing the line?
Yeah.
And yet, I think that line will be crossed soon enough. I think you mentioned it, the floodgates. What are the floodgates? And what's going to be that next tipping point that gets you to where you're sitting, where Gabe Feldman's sitting in the dome watching the game on his app, on the Saints app, making a gamble, right?
Yeah.
Making a bet. So we'll see.
And the wearables tie into that so well because as this goes along, and they'll be betting on how many times can he shoot from that position and get that shot in a 3-pointer or whatever it is. I mean, it's just going to go insane. And I think players will probably fight more on the wearable side of this thing, and then on the other side, the league is fighting the betting. But it's going to come to a head quickly.
One of those things, Christina, is that we do, like at the Pelicans, because the NBA is a little bit more liberal when it comes to, how far can we go up to that line. And if you get on your Pelicans app, we have it's not gaming, but there's a certain amount of predictive things that you can do in game, right, on your app to keep the fan engaged. But it's like we believe in our building heads up rather than heads down. We want our fans watching the game, but if they're engaged in the game on our app,
Yeah.
And we're selling them a hot dog. Hey, go to section 103 to get your hot dog and Coke right now for $1 off. We're able to actually engage with them in real time in the arena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. And it just on the note of how much things have changed in the league's view of gambling, again, in part because of the Supreme Court ruling, but 1980 and 1983, which are now, I realize, a long time ago, but it doesn't feel that long ago to me. Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, they were retired at the time, but they were both suspended by Major League Baseball not for gambling, because they already retired, but they were greeters in a casino in Atlantic City. And based on that, they were banned from baseball, and then eventually reinstated. But that's just shows you they were willing to ban two of the best known players in baseball history after they'd already retired for being a greeter in a casino because they so wanted to avoid the association with gambling. And now we're not that far from having gambling kiosks potentially in stadiums and having people on there, as you said, Greg, team affiliated mobile betting apps, in-game mobile betting apps.
I think we're closer than we know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So all right, we've got a couple questions in the chat from Kyle, one of our students here. I would imagine this is for Greg, although Christina, if you have an answer to this, I'd be curious to hear it. But how complicated was the rebranding of the Pelicans from the Hornets, especially considering another franchise became the Hornets? Have there been any IP implications because of that transition? And then here's the question I think he really wants to ask. Also, can we please be the Jazz again?
Well, I'll answer the first. I'll answer the last one first. And we tried like hell to get that Jazz name back. We did everything we could with the previous owner, and I don't want to say extortion, but he certainly was looking for a big payday for it. And Mr. Benson at the time owned the name Pelicans from the old New Orleans Pelicans baseball team, so he owned that trademark name. And so the irony, you asked about the rebrand from Hornets to Pelicans. There was really no connection to Hornets in our city. We're a city of connection anyway. We're a city of history and legacy. And so ironically, right around 2012, it was the BP oil spill was going on. The Pelicans they were all full of oil. We went down to Port Fourchon and did a Pelican cleaning day. And we had owned the Pelicans for about 2 years then. And so the rebrand came, and we looked at different logos, and I'll be honest with you, I think the Pelicans logo is a great logo, and there is a connection to Pelicans state bird, and what it means, what the actual pelican means, and so we thought it was going to be a good fit. As it turns out, I think it's a great fit. It's a great logo, and many people may disagree, but the rebrand was actually fun and fairly easy, to the point where we're one of the best-selling merchandise in the NBA. It's got a great look, and it's got a great feel, and our fans have really taken to it. So it was fairly easy. There were some other issues related to it, because the Hornets ended up going back to Charlotte and Michael Jordan's team, and so but for the most part, holistically from 30,000 feet, the rebrand itself was fairly easy, fairly simple for us. I don't know if there's any other more technical questions to it, but.
That's perfect. Thank you, Greg. Christina, this is from Neil Ekblom, as one of our former students. How can law school graduates pitch themselves to be of use in non-legal sports and entertainment positions?
You know what? Being in sports is tough because everyone wants to be in sports, and I think probably the best way to pitch is really just understanding the business, networking, relationships, trying to truly understand every aspect of the business, and getting internships and experience in some of those areas, because it's more than just marketing and communications, right? There are so many different areas within the sports team, within the league, within the Players Association. There's so many different areas that you can go to. It's really understanding all of the different jobs and opportunities that are out there, and then getting some experience in it, or just getting your foot in the door. Everyone wants to be in sports and entertainment. I've lucked up, kind of fell upon it, but you can also look at jobs where, like a Caesars, where there's going to be somebody on the Caesar side that's handling the sports division of Caesars now, and the naming rights and what's going to happen in promotions and engaging and how to utilize players and everything else. So I think it's looking at every aspect of the business. Capital One is a huge sports division. So you have to look at it from a corporate perspective, from a team perspective, from a league perspective. There's a number of different ways of going in there. So understand the industry, understand the opportunities, get some experience, and network, network, network.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, if you don't mind. Like Christina said, what's interesting. I was talking to some students the other day, and I'd get calls all the time from a dad, like, "Hey, Greg, my son's now so and so graduating, and can you talk to him?" And like I said, I'm happy to talk. We just don't have jobs, you know. But a number of folks a number of kids I've talked to, and I always say this, and I stand by it. What's the best degree to go get if I want to work in sports? I'm like, well, I would go get a degree. I'd go get a marketing degree, and then I'd go to law school. I think a law degree is the best business degree you can get. And I honestly believe that, because if I looked around my building, one of the largest growing areas in our company is finance, it's analytics, it's data. And yet there are two people in there with law degrees that are working in there. They're legally trained. They've got a law degree, and yet they're in there doing work in the business side of our building. And what Christina said is, like, all these other companies that are service or corporate, they're sponsorships, they're connected, they're distant cousins from our team, whatever. They all have these sports divisions or these sports contexts. And the person that's the most busiest in our building, because her tentacles go in she touches everything I do in PR.
Yeah.
She touches everything in data. She touches everything in marketing. She touches every contract that we do with players. Is Vicky Newmeyer, Gabe's friend, and she's got a small staff. And yet, I'll tell you, that's another area that we look, and that doesn't even count the litigation that we're involved in. Now we have outside counsel, but she has to point that. She has to be the point person for that. We have so many workman comp cases. So to me, the best business degree you can get is a law degree.
We agree here at Tulane Law School, and the best law degree you can get is a sports law degree here, or sports law certificate at Tulane. So we have time for one last question. It's a quick question. This is from Christopher Thomas. Christina, who is that amazing portrait behind you, and where can I find it? Other than behind you, but where else can I find it?
Look, I can see it. The man with the cigar, that actually came from Cuba. So
Okay.
if you want one, you have to go to Cuba to get it.
Okay.
You can see it
All
there.
Gabe, what's interesting about this painting behind me?
You can't see the dome.
So this painting behind me was painted on the field the night of the homecoming game when we came back from Katrina, the Monday night game against Atlanta. And so that's Michael Vick getting tackled. And there's a local artist named Frenchie that painted on the field, and he painted two of them. And one went to ESPN, and he gave me the other original. It actually still has the confetti from the game as it fell off. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow. I was at that game.
Not to top Christina's beautiful cigar.
Is that the game where everyone went out, where the players went out with their hands?
No, this was 06. This was literally when we opened up. It could have been.
But it was the Steve Gleason game. The block punt game.
We blocked the punt. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. I really appreciate the thoughts, the insight, and you both taking the time. And it's great advice for our students and for our alum. And I just want to echo what both Christina and Greg said in terms of the opportunities that are not with teams or leagues, but with the partners of the teams and the leagues, whether it's the broadcast partners or the sponsors, the Capital Ones, that not only do they have sports lawyers, but their sports lawyers have really cool jobs to try to figure out what is the trajectory of these sports? Where should we be investing? Who should we be partnering with? So it's a great way to be involved in the industry, and you don't have to sweat that the Pelicans are losing to the Magic at the end of the first half. So,
and look, I would say that I work so closely with lawyers. I've worked with them, NFL players. I work with them Orange Bowl in this position every day. I talk to the lawyers. So, and if you talk about the league, I think everyone at the league has a law degree. So
Yeah.
get a law degree.
Well, thank you both. Thank you all for listening. Just a reminder that to attend the third session, that'll be moderated by Jeff Frost, the president of Sony Pictures Televisions, and will feature a discussion of the current and future of television, including a number of other television executives, a pretty well-known actor, so it should be a lot of fun. You've got to log out and then log back into that Zoom link. Christina and Greg, thank you again so much. Best of luck to you, be well, and we hope to be able to do this in person next year.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.